Coming up on a Monday edition of the Jaguar Squad Show. Yes, no Marcus Ogden today, but he's missing out on a good one. We are finally handing out our postseason awards following the Jaguars 2025 season. We've got the MVP. We've got the Assistant Coach of the Year. We have the Surprise of the Year. We've even got the 2026 Breakout Candidate of the Year.
And I know most of y'all think y'all know exactly who we're going to pick. Don't be thinking that you can get in our head, man. It might be a surprise or two for you here today on the Squad Show.
Duval, it's the Jaguars Squad. Everything Jacksonville Jaguars every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Sunshine State. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Gear up. The Jaguars Squad Show starts now.
What is going on, party people? Welcome to a Monday edition of the Locked On Jaguars Squad Show on the Locked On Jaguars YouTube channel and the Locked On Podcast Network. Mia O'Brien, Tony Wiggins here with you for the next hour. Marcus Ogden has the night off. As always, this is an entertaining and also engaging program. So make sure you leave a comment, make sure you're watching live from, and of course, as always, all Locked On Jaguars programs are available on demand wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. T-Wig, it's not only Super Bowl week across the country. NFL Honors will be on Thursday night. Liam Cohen is a finalist for the NFL's Coach of the Year award. Trevor Lawrence is a finalist for MVP. And so we figured, what better time than now to do our own Jaguar-centric awards program following the 13-4 regular season in 2025. But before we do that, there's a pressing question that's not an award, but it's kind of an award that you sent to me earlier today. And so that's where I want to begin. At what point did you know that this was going to be a special season in Duval County?
All right, so that's a double question because special as in 13-4 special, probably Denver because that's really special, right? But that it was going to be different, I think it was the 49er game. The Jaguars hadn't gone out west and won a game, and they won that game that day. And we know the little dust up on the field that happened after that game. But that's when I was like, okay, I know they're going to have some tough games. They're going to lose some games. And they came right back home and they beat Kansas City on Monday night. And I was like, okay, now that's 2 in a row. And they beat Houston, San Francisco, and KC in a row consecutively, right? And then they lost to Seattle and the Rams. The Rams games was really ugly. But when you think about it, think about that schedule, that 5-game schedule right there between consecutive games. And really, we could go, we'll just stick with those 5. We'll go Houston, the 49ers. Both teams went to the quarterfinals. The Chiefs were still the Chiefs at that time. Seattle is in the Super Bowl, and then the Rams went to that's the team that Seattle beat to get to the Super Bowl. That stretch normally would have killed a team that isn't very good, and the Jaguars ended up, in retrospect, going 3-2 in that. Now, I tell you, the one that scared the heck out of me was they had no business going down to the last play against the Raiders. Yes. No business whatsoever doing that. So it kind of gave me a little bit of pause. And then it bit them the following week. It bit them in the, when they gave up that big lead to Houston in the fourth quarter. But then they came home and they beat the hell out of the Chargers. And I actually thought the Chargers were a decent team. There are a lot of people that didn't, but the Chargers also ended up making the playoffs. It's around that point I say, okay, this is a playoff team. We're going to get there. I'm thinking maybe 11 wins at that time. I had no idea they'd go 13-4 because when the victory that really pushed them over the top is me thinking they were going to the Super Bowl. I'm going out to Vegas this weekend. I'm not going to Santa Clara, but I had my plans on hold. The money that I was going to use, that I'm using in Vegas, I was like, no, I might have to shift that and fly about another hour past that. But it did not work out that way. I thought the Jaguars were going to the Super Bowl after they beat Denver because at that point I said, okay, looking at that early season schedule and then looking at the Broncos, it ain't like nobody they can't beat. That's at least until they got to the to the Super Bowl. There wasn't nobody in the AFC I thought that could deal with them. Unfortunately, it did not work out that way. But that's how it was. Mia, it was kind of layered. So I'll tell you, when I thought it was going to be 13-4 special, that was Denver. But when I thought it would be 11 win, get to the playoffs, we've arrived, we're a part of the show special, I would say that that victory out in Santa Clara, where the Super Bowl is being played this weekend.
Vincent agrees with you that was the first game where he said, oh, wait, they don't normally do that. King David echoes the sentiment of that Chiefs game when it was confirmed to him what he believed was a good hunch prior to the kickoff of the regular season. It was confirmed to him their work against a healthy KC team. And I would echo those sentiments. I remember in the moment, T-Wig, once they won that game against the 49ers, which I was pretty confident they would, that was when I said, okay, there's no question to me. They're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, to the point that there's at least one listener of this program who can confirm the receipts. I told them they're going to beat the Chiefs. No question about it. Like, very confident they're going to beat the Chiefs Monday night at home. Inevitable letdown against the Seattle Seahawks, who we knew at the time had a great defense. I don't know if we knew their defense was that good and that Sam Darnold could do that with that supporting cast. And then I picked them to beat the Rams. I expected that to be a bit more of a competitive game. That was not the case, just because I had questions about LA's decision to fly out to London literally the day before. And to your point, I still had questions about this team long-term after that Raiders win. And we sat here, our first post-game edition of the Jaguar Squad Show was for the Houston game. And I'm not going to lie, folks, after that, there was 7,000 of you that were watching live, which was great for us. But at the same time, I was like, oh boy, is this going to be a lot of this type of post-game show coming forth here in the next few months? 8 straight wins. And while not all of them were pretty, especially as aesthetically pleasing as that victory over the Chargers, the win over the Cardinals, even, you can make the argument that at that point in time, we did not know if the Jags were for real. For me, it really started when they just absolutely dominated the Indianapolis Colts. And that was something I expected to happen independent of the Daniel Jones injury, just because it felt like this Jaguars team was a great matchup going up against Indianapolis, but also that this team was so locked in. There were players asking me in the locker room that week how packed I thought the crowd would be given the impending weather conditions. And I said, look, like, I think they're going to get as many people as they possibly can, which they did, given the weather. But then to actually go forth and not only dominate in that game, but then to also go forth in the win over the Jets. And I know there wasn't a rushing score, but I guess Trevor Lawrence technically had a rushing touchdown. Travis Etienne had 3 receiving touchdowns. And then the win at Denver. Like, I think that the fact that you saw the Jaguars just pummeling people outside of those inexplicable games against the Raiders and the Cardinals, for me, it was the Colts game where I went, okay, we know they're going to beat the Jets. I get a good feeling about Denver. If that continues down the stretch, this is a team that's going to win out the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I like the way you framed that, because it is true. And folks have to understand too, just like fans, they're members of the media, we deal with that. I don't want to overuse it, but the Stockholm syndrome of the past, and going back to training camp, I was trying to look at it and say, all right, Wig, hold on. Don't go overboard with it and buy in, because you did that last year. And that was because of the energy of the defensive coaches that they had brought in to try to fix and change up a little bit of thing. Chris Richard, on the back end. Mia, you've been in the end zone watching him practice, man. He's an intense dude, man. And so when you put that with Ryan Nielsen, who I heard a lot of good things about from guys like Ross Jackson and Aaron Freeman from the Falcons and the Saints.
Hell, everybody in Atlanta. Everybody in Atlanta
everybody.
You talked to at the combine was like, he's a future head coach. So
they wanted to keep him. They wanted to keep him as the defensive
coordinator. We just had to go along with what they were telling us.
Right. So I had to pause a little bit, and I was like, I said it. I went over last year, and those jokers won 4 games, and I heard everybody wanted to jump Ryan Nielsen. They didn't care for him. They didn't like him. So I was real hesitant to get on this microphone and boost up fans that have been through so much. Y'all might not think we care. I absolutely do care. But I will still tell the truth. But I said the truth is going to be the same. I wanted to say it in like July. But my thing is you're not doing a disservice to the fans if you tell them that truth in the middle of September. It doesn't matter when you knew it. They ain't gonna believe that you felt that way. But the thing is, Mia, as I was real hesitant, but I did notice last year with the way Liam was talking I remember one particular play during the period where we're not allowed to record, and they were in like 7-on-7, and they were dumping the ball, just dumping it, completing passes, little crossers to Parker Washington and Dimey and Travis. And at some point, I heard Liam say, "Hey, throw the ball down the field, man. Throw it down the field. I like it, but come on, man. We got to get some plays, man. Throw that ball down the field." And I was like, this ain't the same thing, because normally coaches wouldn't be upset with little 7 and 8 yard. He was like, no, we need to throw the ball down the field and get some plays. I said, it's a little different. It's a little bit different here. And it was. And I liked all of those bodies that they brought in on the offensive line. But we knew it had to all come together. They had to have demonstrated performance, and we had to see it. That 49er game, the Jaguars had never gone out west and done anything. Early in the year, late in the year, they'd go get schemed up. Man, you had Parker Washington running back punt returns. You had Trevor responding. You had the defense holding on for dear life and then making a play and turning the ball over against a 49er team that is always super, super prepared. To the point they went to the playoffs this year with a mass unit, with all of their, just to show you how they always are and the rhythm that they play with. That game for me made me think the Jaguars are going to win at least 11 games and go to the Super Bowl. I mean, not the Super Bowl, but to the playoffs.
Hey, maybe Super Bowl next season. A bunch of you guys are chiming in on the chat with thoughts on the latest breaking news around the league, so we'll hit that quick before we take our first time out. Gus Bradley is headed back to the AFC South. He will be Robert Saleh's defensive coordinator. Of course, the former DC of the San Francisco 49ers is expected to call plays, and so the former head coach of the Jaguars will mostly be in an advisory big brother type of role
Teaching,
for Big Bob. And these are two guys that worked together in San Francisco last year. Gus Bradley, once upon a time, brought Robert Saleh to Jacksonville from Seattle. T-Wig, you were covering the team at the time. Your thoughts on Gus coming back to the Southeast?
Well, I'm glad he's coming back for the ops, and about what that means for me. If Saleh's going to call the plays, then Gus is probably going to be there to teach, because it's the system, and we've gone through it over and over again on Locked On Jaguars, where I try to tell people coordinating is more than just play calling. It's about teaching. It's the Grant Udinski role, right? It's teaching, it's teaching, it's teaching. So I ain't going to celebrate too quickly that Gus is coming back, because I think Gus's version of that defense that they run, with the two cousins, Otto and Leo, I think it's kind of dead, and I think it's easily attacked. But the way that they run it with better personnel, with Saleh, as well as D'Amico Ryans, their spin on it is pretty much the same thing from an alignment standpoint, but it's never quite the same. Everybody says they have their own little way of implementing things. Look, the defense is going to work out fine for a guy like Jeffrey Simmons. He's going to be back at 3 technique, where he's supposed to be on an even front instead of an odd front. So they got 2 big guys in the middle. So, it's cool. We ain't scared of them, though. We're not scared of the Titans at all.
I will say this. I am fascinated, and especially because when Gus was the head coach, I was in college, and then I was working in Iowa, so I was not here in Jacksonville. But I've only met him once since then. Have gotten to know his son, Carter. Vincent, I see your question about Carter in the chat. We'll get to that a little bit later in the program if we have time. But my one interaction with Gus, we went to lunch at the Combine, and in 2 hours, this man had me ready to run through a brick wall.
Yes.
And ultimately, that is something that I hope, in terms of legacy, independent of how he fares in Tennessee, who I understand is the Jaguars' most heated rival there is, although the Texans are certainly giving them a run for their money of late. I would just say that I hope Gus's legacy is that he was a leader of men here in Jacksonville, and that people do look back on him as someone who, while yes, he didn't win a whole heck of a lot as the head coach here, he was someone who treated everyone with respect. This community loved him. And I think ultimately, I don't want to say it's Peter principle, where he was a great coordinator and just not a great head coach, because he essentially took over an expansion roster. And I think from the top on down, anyone who was here in 2013 would tell you as much. He was not a head coach equipped to handle that situation. But I do believe he's a leader of men. And so I wish him all the best. In my book, like, I'm not going to lie to you, Wig. We got a leadership podcast cooking since I do teach in the leadership department at UNF. Like, I kind of want to call up Gus, like as we're workshopping this right now, and be like, Gus, can you do an episode? Just because I could sit here and listen to Gus for hours. Because I do think he's a great leader of men. And so to your point, as a teacher, not the primary play caller, I think it's a great role for him. And to Robert Saleh's credit, this is someone who took the defense that Bradley and friends developed in Seattle, brought it with him to San Francisco, and has recognized that that is a defense where you need to have studs, Pro Bowlers, basically 1 through 11 on the defensive side of the ball. And if you don't have all those guys and those horses for courses, it's not going to work. And to Robert Saleh's credit, despite the litany of injuries this season, he was still able to find success with that modified version of the cover 3, because he's taken and piecemealed some other influences over the years into that defense. But I think the fact that they have gotten by in San Francisco without having Pro Bowlers at all 11 spots on the defensive side of the ball, that's where I think that defense has evolved. And to your credit, I think the one that we saw here in Jacksonville from 2013 to, oh man, I mean, quite frankly, Todd Wash was still running it through 2020. It's dead, and that's okay. But I do hope that Jags fans do look back at Gus's time here fondly, because I wasn't here, but I look back at it like just like what he stood for, you know?
I'll tell you what, when guys like Gus and Raheem Morris, when they speak, they grab you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's where them speaking so eloquently and often and putting their words together, here's where it goes bad. When the team continues to lose. Now it's like, I want you to shut up, because no matter what you say, or the thing we used to say, when I was growing up in the hood, it sounds good. And that's what it kind of came down to with Gus. There was this one thing though, that towards the end, it may not have been towards the end, but the moment I soured on Gus as a head coach a little bit, there was a mic'd up. And Jed Fish was the offensive coordinator. Just think about that. Jed Fish, the offensive coordinator. Robert Saleh's on the staff. Jed Fish is now coaching, and his name gets mentioned with every college job that comes open. Jed was the OC, and Gus was like pleading with him. Jed, it's okay, man. Just run the next play. I know. Jay, hey, man, keep your head in it, man. And that's when I was like, okay, that's not a dude I want to be my head coach. I want the dude to be my head coach to tell Jed Fish, you better get it right, or I'm going to let the quarterback coach call the plays. That's more of my speed, and because I personally respond well to hard coaching. Mm-hmm. I don't want nobody begging me and trying to convince me to do my job. I'd rather you just say, hey, this is what I need, and we need it pronto, stat. That's just how I roll, because I don't take everything personally. And it was at that point I thought, maybe Gus is too nice. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's just too nice. He needs to tell Jed Fish to get it in gear, man, or we're going to get you up out of here. Because the feeling I had when Liam Cohen and the crew got here, and I came on the podcast and said it, anybody who listens to Locked On Jaguars every day knows that I said it. Liam screwed up the Duval, and then you had James Gladstone with his, the haircut and making these little faces and carrying the football, looking like he's 12 years old. I came right on this microphone and said, all right, it's been a few days. Let me explain something to you. That ain't Opie Taylor, and they ain't as nice as you think they are. And what I could juxtapose from that, nothing happened. There was no reason. Nobody raised their voice. You can look people in the eye though and see toughness. Toughness doesn't always act tough. Toughness is what it is. And you saw them bench players say stuff like Jacoby doesn't drop the ball, and we were having a problem with drops. So we went and fixed our problem, meaning it ain't personal, but we got to get this thing together. We got to get it right. And that's what I think it's sort of a quiet strength. You know what I mean? And people will tell you, I hope somebody puts it in the comments. I came on here one day and just out of the blue, and I said, them dudes tougher than you think they are. And if you don't get it together, you'll be on the bench, and they're going to put somebody in the game that knows how to do it. And sure enough, it turns out that probably right around that time, Saleh said something he shouldn't have said, and people saw Liam. They saw Liam from Maine. You know what I mean? And when that happened, everybody was like, "Wig, you called it. He is tough." And I said, "I told you. You can just sense it, man, and you can feel it. You know, if you know, you know. It's just what it. Yep, look at it. I remember that with T-Wig. Yeah, because when I said that, everybody was like, "Where's this coming from?" And because I thought that there was too much of this. Oh, we just got a bunch of nice guys and the nerds and the analytic football guys, and all they want to do is dial it up. No, that's not the case. One thing that could have told you that is, who did he go get his DC? A beta male ain't gonna go get an alpha.
I was just gonna say, like, I could do a whole leadership lesson on that in and of itself. The fact that yes, a beta male is not going to go out and find an alpha and say, you're gonna run my defense and you're going to be right there with me in the trenches. But we don't have time for the leadership lesson because it is time for a speed round awards ceremony for the Jaguars 2025 season. When we come back, T-Wig and I are going to run through all the awards. We've got Rookie of the Year. We've got Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year. We got some special ones too, like the Juice Award, that guy. Oh, we're going to have some fun when we return here on this Monday edition of Locked On Jaguar Squad Show. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right. And this week, PrizePicks has a special max discount for the big game, live in the app right now. Drake May just needs one passing yard for this max discount to win. Add another player to your lineup, and if your pick hits, you can cash in. PrizePicks is so simple to use. It takes no time to get started. The whole format is so clean. Pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections. It makes watching games even more fun because every drive and every stat matters. The social feeds feature is also awesome. You can share lineups and even copy lineups from winners with one click. And I love that you can follow PrizePicks partners like us and tail or fade picks right there from the feed. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups right after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Kicking off the year feeling good is the goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win. When I stay on top of it, my energy, focus, and mood all level up. But let's be real. Plain water doesn't always cut it, especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. That's where DripDrop comes in. Doctor-developed, proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better. Think clearer focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow. I love that it uses a precise ratio of electrolytes and glucose for rapid absorption, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading sports drinks. And it tastes amazing. There are 16 original flavors and 8 zero sugar options to choose from. DripDrop science-backed formula is trusted by firefighters, medical professionals, and over 90% of top college and pro teams because it rehydrates you faster and more effectively than water alone. Right now, DripDrop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to DripDrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. Stock up now at DripDrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. T-Wig, they're keeping me working with back-to-back live reads, which means it's your time to shine, my friend, here on this Monday edition of the Jag Squad Show. We're going to go rapid fire. I'm going to say an award. You're going to give me a nominee or two and a winner. Let's begin a little bit more traditional with Rookie of the Year for the 2025 Jacksonville Jaguars.
Ooh, that is a very, very good question. I'm going to go with Bashal.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Bashal Tootin because I think at the very least, I know Travis Etienne's a free agent, but there are some people that say, look, if we move on, we could start with Tootin and LaQuint Allen and go get a rookie. And for people to think that, and you watch him and he does have a little bit of a different little jump cut to him and he can find something. There's a couple of times he ran into a man when it looks like he had a hole somewhere else, especially on the edges, but he fixed his fumbling problem too. So I'm going to go with him, and I think it's fair to say that he's a big part of what the Jaguars want to do moving forward. But I got to give a little a salute to LaQuint Allen too, because he is their best pass protection running back, and that means something, especially when the offensive line sometimes had some injuries, and then when they were playing tough people And then he played special teams. He's really a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife, and he's a very, very valuable member of this football team. So I want to give him a little bit of attaboy also. But Tootin is the one, because I think he's the one that could give you the big splash plays. And he's a guy you can give the ball to. One game, the game they lost against Buffalo, he had like 4 carries. He averaged like 13, 14 yards a carry in that game. And people left the game saying, why did they not give him the ball more? So I'll go with that, because the future is also bright with him. And the one weakness that he had, he absolutely fixed it.
3 back-to-back 10-yard runs in that Bills game. We will have the what ifs forever, but we are moving on to 2026. That's why we're here with postseason awards. Don't worry. I think we're going to have LaQuint Allen win an award or two a little bit later here in this rapid fire awards segment. I would also introduce, since Vincent brought him up, and Vincent's various picks for all the awards we're going to be handing out here today. Rayon Lane, the 6th-round pick out of Navy, who I think the Jaguars drafted with the intent of he's going to be a special teams demon, which he was. But for him to also contribute in his rookie campaign on defense was huge. I'd also nominate, just because of where they came to the Jaguars from, the 2 undrafted free agent edge rushers in B.J. Green and Danny Strigow. Certainly the stats didn't pop off the page, but the fact that those 2 guys as undrafted free agents made the roster, usurped Emmanuel Ogbah and eventually Dwan Smoot's spot in the lineup, with Smoot playing a lot more on the interior, really speaks to the growth of those 2 players over the course of 2025.
It does. And there's something that's going around right now. I know my man John Shipley did a mock draft that I was all in for, because I like the players that he picked. There seems to be more they need an edge than I think it is true. I really think they need to improve the pass rush, but I think they need to do it from the interior. And you see New England, you see all of these teams. In fact, Seattle, they get most of their pass rush right up the middle, even though DeMarcus Lawrence has like 6 sacks. Williams on the inside, those guys have like 7 sacks, and they're coming up right into the middle, and they're running the quarterback out towards the outside. The thing about player development is this. You remember, we were at the meeting the other day, and Gladstone said a couple of guys the Rams picked that have now gotten contract extensions didn't even play their rookie year. I think we're underselling what B.J. Green and Strigow did last year. I think the team probably believes we played them and they helped us in a 13-4 season. If you draft somebody, that's going to give you a 5th. If you use a 2nd-round pick on an edge, that's 5 of them, right? And you can never have too many. But the thing is, well, what about where they think those guys are going to be with an entire offseason and another year with the continuity of all of the coaches coming back? So I think a position coach or 2 might stand on the table for those 2 guys and say, nah, we're fine, with our 2 deep here with those 2 guys. So we'll have to wait and see if that's the case. But yeah, that's noted, Neil. You're right about those 2 guys.
Let's keep it moving. This is like the Grammys or the Oscars. We're going to bounce around a little bit. So let's hit Offensive Player of the Year. Who we got, T-Wig?
Parker Washington.
All right, there it is. You and Vincent agree. Parker Washington, the Offensive Player of the Year. Not
and let Vincent know I can't see his stuff. I'm not looking at it. So I purposely don't look at it so it won't affect what I say, because Trevor's going to be my MVP. That's what so I'm going to go with Parker Washington, because he was just Johnny on the spot, man. I was real close to giving it to the other wide receiver, but I think it was Parker, because especially towards the end, in the biggest moments, in the biggest game, Parker Washington was the dude I wanted him to throw the ball to.
And he was top 10 in the league the last 6-7 weeks of the season in EPA per play, alongside the likes of Jamar Chase, Jackson Smith and Jigba, et cetera, et cetera. Let's have some fun. The Bring the Juice Award. Who is the guy who, in your opinion, defines what it means to have that Duval DNA and bring the juice each and every day?
Trayvon Walker. And I won't even hesitate for that one.
All right.
They are a different team when he's not there, or when he has a cast on and he's not healthy. When he's there, they're special, man. They're special against the run. They're special even getting after the quarterback, especially when they can get a lead. But to me, it just personifies everything that you want this team to be about. And when you hear the coaches rave and talk about him, Anthony Campanile, that alpha we talked about, he said his presence in the building, when they talk about that's a guy you just have to have on your team. And the fact that he loves this place, man, he loves it here. I call them football playing Jessies. And I said this before, you go in their house and you look at the throw pillows on their sofa and they're shaped like footballs. They even got football shaped cereal. Everything that they do is about the game and the work. And they're the type of people that you don't have to motivate. You don't have to motivate them. They're already ready to go. I think Trayvon Walker is the juice guy for this organization.
I do want to note, folks, I haven't given T-Wig the listing of awards, so we're going to pair two together. I was going to give Trayvon the That Guy award because I think he is that guy. Now, there's some other names that, to be fair, you could also throw up there for the That Guy award, because I would give the Bring the Juice award to LaQuint Allen.
There you go. There you go.
You walk around that locker room and I mean, Trayvon himself said to me, he's like, this kid is a nut and I love him. He's like, I love him. He's insane. And Liam Cohen told the broadcast crew on one of the televised broadcasts that if he had 53 LaQuint Allens, that would be the ideal Jaguars team. And
yeah, man.
That kind of says it all. One legend also wants to nominate Foye Oluwakin for the Bring the Juice as well. And I do think that's certainly a great shout for not just the Bring the Juice, but also the That Guy award. Any other nominees for you for either of those two, T-Wig?
Brenton Strange, because I think Brenton Strange, he'll probably get mad at me because he went to Penn State. Brenton Strange plays like a tight end that went to Iowa. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He complete. I've been against move tight ends forever because I'm like, you want to put a move tight end who can't block, you might as well just put a wide receiver in. But he blocks, he catches, he runs after the catch, he runs violently, it's nasty. He is a complete tight end, and you ain't gonna name 8 tight ends in the league, in my opinion, better than him as a complete tight end. And that's another one of those. Hey Trent, appreciate you. You know what I mean? Because that's a guy that he picked, and when he picked him, it was a head scratcher for me because I just didn't think he was that good. Yeah, he proved me wrong. He is. He's a very, very good player. And I even said last week that he needs to be a Jaguars lifer.
There are those who also believe that Doug Peterson actually made that pick. So not to,
Oh, okay. There you go. There you go. So it even makes sense.
Not to throw salt on the Trent wound, but should be noted. I'm sure it's now being referred to as a collaborative effort because Tyler Bowen, who was the Jaguars tight ends coach when Urban Meyer was the head coach, of course, then went to Penn State, or previously had been at Penn State prior to being plucked to come here to Jacksonville, then went to Virginia Tech. Now he's at Ohio State. So there were calls made to him by both parties. But hey, listen, revisionist history, we're moving on, and we are moving on with 3 more awards to give out before we get to our big award that's kind of going to jumpstart the rest of these conversations throughout the course of the offseason, that being the surprise of the year. But first, the assistant coach of the year. You cannot pick a coordinator, T-Wig. Who is your assistant coach of the year?
I'm going to go with Edgar Bennett. And this was very, very close for me. I almost went running back because Chad, because he was working. Look, Chad was working with 2 rookies and they were playing a lot. You know what I mean? But no, I'm gonna go with Edgar because they were expecting big things out of Brian Thomas Jr. If you remember at the beginning of the year, they were going to BT even in the preseason. That's what they were going to do, right? They were onboarding Travis Hunter. They recognized Parker Washington was doing what he needed to do. And in a pinch, they went out and made a trade for Jacoby Myers. And Jacoby Myers became an immediate impact player the second he got here without any training camp. And then Parker Washington continued to do what he did. And then even to a certain degree, when BT finally came back off of that last injury, he started to produce a little bit at the end of the year, caught a touchdown in the playoff game. So my thing is they've had to manage a bunch of stuff, especially with Travis going out and then, them playing Tim Patrick a little bit more. I remember Trammell got called up on game day after being on the practice squad. They even used him to get everything that they got out of those wide receivers with what they were trying to do from the beginning of the year with a system that is not very, it's not one of those systems that's really, really easy for players. I think Edgar Bennett deserves a whole lot of credit for what he was able to do.
I love the shout. The only other name I'd introduce, because I do agree with Chad Morton as well, would be Tem Lukabu, the linebackers coach, just because of someone who's going to be a nominee, I think, for this next award, as well as the surprise of the year. And that is one Devin Lloyd. And that next award is the defensive player of the year. Who do you got, T-Wig?
You just named him, Devin Lloyd. Even though he missed a chunk of the season, he became a second-team All-Pro. It's too bad that it's lining up the way it's lining up. That kid has to get everything that he can. This is going to be the biggest contract he'll ever get. He owes it to himself to do that. And it may be something that the Jaguars aren't able to get done and aren't able to facilitate. And then it might be a thing that they just don't prioritize as much with paying that much money or allocating that money at that position. Foy makes a lot of money. It's just hard to do unless you could somehow figure out a way that you're going to evolve the defense a little more to allow him to rush the passer from the second level the way Dallas did with Michael Parsons. If that's not schematically in the cards for you, then it probably doesn't do you a whole bunch of good to be paying that dude $15 to $20 million a year.
You already said your MVP, Trevor Lawrence. Was there anyone else that you considered for that honor?
Absolutely not. 16 is the man. They go as he goes. He's accepted it. Travis Etienne did have something to say. He said Trevor needs to drop, hey man, if anything, drop his, what a little bit more, the jewels. But the reason why I think he says that is because I think what that is that's not saying that he's not boisterous enough. I think what that's saying is you have our attention and you have earned the right that if you got to yell at somebody, we ain't gonna say a word. We're gonna listen to you. That's to me what that is. That means, bro, you got our permission to go ahead and just be all in alpha leader. If somebody get in somebody's face, one of the criticisms right now with Lamar Jackson is he takes his helmet off and he throws his helmet down when things don't go his way because it appears that he's angry at the offensive coordinator. I have never seen him get in the face of one of his teammates. So sometimes you can be too nice and too friendly, but when you're in that leadership position, Mia, it calls for you to sometimes be in a leadership position in ways that may seem a little bit uncomfortable. But he has the cachet and he's earned the right to be able to do that because you can't yell at people if you ain't playing well. Well, he played lights out and he's one of the 5 finalists. He should have been a top 5 finalist for the MVP award.
We've got one more award to give out here on this Monday edition of the Jaguar Squad Show, an award show, if you may. It's Surprise of the Year. I've got 3 nominees I'm going to let y'all marinate on during the commercial timeout. That being one Devin Lloyd, Parker Washington, Cole Van Lannon. Do you have anyone else you'd like to nominate that the folks can kind of marinate on during this next timeout, T-Wig?
Anton Harrison.
Ooh, interesting. All right, folks, we've got 4 nominees for the Surprise of the Year. Leave your pick in the comments. Do you like Devin Lloyd, Parker Washington, Anton Harrison, or Cole Van Lannon for Surprise of the Year, or maybe someone else entirely? I see some of you already chiming in with some other names, so you can have a write-in vote as well. We discuss coming up next here on the Jaguar Squad Show. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our businesses and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. I love how simple Quo makes everything. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replying faster and more personal. It works right from your phone or computer, and you can even keep your existing number. And Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps, so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise, Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnfl. That's QUO.com/lockedonnfl. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. One award still to give out here on this award show edition of the Jaguar Squad Show. No Marcus Ogden today, by the way. He is off on assignment. Tony T. Wiggins and Mia O'Brien hanging out with you for another 20 minutes or so. We appreciate all of you joining us live on YouTube. As always, we are live on Mondays at 4:30, Wednesdays at 4, unless otherwise specified. All right, T-Wig, I'm excited to hear your pick for Jaguars surprise of the year. But before I hear who you have selected as the winner, I do want to note that one legend loves the Anton Harrison nominee, and that is his pick as well. Hef has written in a fifth nominee, who I agree definitely should be in the running, that being one Antonio Johnson, the third-year safety. And so between those five, Anton Harrison, Antonio Johnson, Parker Washington, Devin Lloyd, and Cole Van Lanen, who is the surprise of the year?
So let me preface this. First of all, I didn't know Parker was going to have to play that much because I thought people were making too much of a big deal about the fourth receiver coming out of training camp. So how's he going to get touches? I'm like, I ain't worried about him getting no touches. I want BT to touch the ball, and I want Travis to touch the ball. And they paid Deami $10 million. I want him touching the ball. Turns out I wanted Parker touching the ball at the end of the year because of all of the things that had happened. The other thing is, did I see a Cole Van Lanen contract extension at left tackle coming? No, I did not. So that one act was a surprise. But Mia, you remember this. You remember showing up at practice early and Chumi Doga was lining up at right tackle and Anton was coming behind him. And we found out that, hey, maybe it had something to do with the fact that everybody was in the building and he was running across the parking lot with his clothes in his bag, getting there late. Did Liam saying stuff like, look, we just need him to be more consistent. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, are they going to trade this dude or something? And Fred Johnson was going at right tackle some, and McCary, and they were rotating. I'm like, out of all the positions on this offensive line, that's the one that they're rotating. I thought it would be the other side.
And I especially want to put an asterisk on that because let's just say that some other programs in the area certainly were expecting it to be the left tackle position that was up for grabs. But guess what? I understand Walker Little had a lackluster 2025 campaign at times, but he was showing up every day in training camp, in the offseason program, was consistent. They saw growth. And so therefore, they weren't as willing to relinquish or give someone else an opportunity to compete for that role, unlike putting the former first-round pick on notice at right tackle.
In fact, you and I, when we did the round table, it was me and you and Sean Sarrett, the offensive line coach. And I think you asked him about Walker Little.
I did because I'd gotten some intel. So I had a feeling what his answer would be.
He smiled and said, whew. I forgot exactly what he said, but he said it with a smile on his face. And then we asked about Anton, and the smile went away, and he said, he's got some work to do. And I'm thinking, like, for him to end up having the season that he had where Liam Cohen is talking about him, like, did you see Anton 30 minutes? And I remember the day it happened, he said once he saw Anton play well, he said, okay, now we expect that all the time. Now that you've shown us you can do it, we expect you to do it. Kind of reminds me of my kids broke my bed, jumping up and down on my bed when I was at work. And I came home and they had cleaned the whole house up trying to preempt that discipline, right? And I'm thinking, like, well, one, I appreciate y'all doing that because it shows me that you're smart and you're slick. And I like that about you. You got a little street sense about you. But now that y'all cleaned my house up, I don't have to pay nobody to come and do it anymore. This is when I was a single parent. So I felt Liam when he said that because now, and then Anton kept delivering all year. All year long, he kept delivering. And I think he, too, just like Parker Washington and just like Brenton Strange, they need to find a way to make him a 10-year Jaguar because I think he's turned the corner and leadership is extracting out of people things that they haven't displayed before, but that they have the capability to do. And Anton answered the call, man. So that's why I'm going with Anton, but none of those answers you gave are wrong.
And this is why T-Wig led off the program by saying, not the expected award winners here on this award show edition of the Jaguar Squad Show. To your point, T-Wig, the Jaguars have some interesting decisions to make this offseason, from certainly the Devin Lloyd contract, if that is even a thought that they entertain, to extensions to Parker Washington, Brenton Strange. Oh, and by the way, Anton Harrison's fifth-year option. I'm assuming that will be picked up at this juncture. But will it be? Will an extension be reached with the right tackle at some point in time? A lot of questions, which brings us to 2026. When we return, we're going to talk 2026 breakout candidate. T-Wig is giving the surprise of the year to Anton Harrison. If you've got a different vote, leave it in the chat. We have one more note of business to attend to. Plus, we'll answer your questions live coming up next here on this Monday edition of the Jaguar Squad Show. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though? Well, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Gametime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast, without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. Pull up the Gametime app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and you can get tickets locked in within minutes. I love seeing the all-in price up front. There's no surprise fees at checkout. Being able to see your view from the seat before buying it makes the decision even easier. Zone deals also a thing, and that stands out big time. Choose the section, Gametime picks the seat, and you save money. Great last-minute options, too. NBA tickets will show up at solid prices. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. And with that, we look ahead to 2026. You just heard our surprise of the year. Perhaps that's a breakout candidate award, if we may, T-Wig. And so I say this, on February 2nd, as we are live on the Locked On Jaguars YouTube channel, who is your way too early breakout candidate for the Big Cats this upcoming season?
All right, so I want to go here. This is a hard one, but I'm going to go here with Boy.
Decisions.
It's hard. I want to go linebacker because I think it's a natural hole there if Devin Lloyd doesn't come back. But I'm going to go Wyatt Malum because I know a lot of people want Dunker. They want your boy from Iowa to come down here and play a little right guard.
Listen, we have Culvers down here and coffee. So Jennings Dunker would fit right in. Come on now, T-Wig.
Yeah, he would. He would fit right in. And I don't think if Milam breaks out that it precludes them from taking Dunker because you always need to have more offensive linemen. But we got to remember what they said about development, man. And that's a day 2 pick, right? And he played some last year. So I'm going to go with Wyatt Milam and think that they build him up a little bit, work hard with him, and give him the first shot to win the right guard position and not have to go out and address that in free agency.
Love it. Hef says Jalen McLeod, the redshirt candidate, if you may, at outside linebacker. And I'm curious, T-Wig, as we also see from King David, his submission is Dennis Gardeck. We don't know if Dennis Gardeck will be back in 2026 because he did sign a 1-year contract. King David adding that Dennis Gardeck was not expected at all to do what he did, provided an immediate backup to the starters, especially when Trayvon Walker was out. And I would think you can get him on a relatively cheap deal. But in theory, if you feel like McLeod is waiting in the wings, then you've already got the replacement in-house as is.
Yeah, and McLeod and Yasir Abdullah they were kind of neck and neck battling for that. And really Gardeck too. I think Gardeck, obviously he played more than Yasir, but I think Yasir is a real good player also. So it's those three. And I don't know that in the packages that the Jaguars are going to run, because they always have 5 DBs out there, if they're going to get the opportunities with Trayvon being on the field, with Josh being on the field. We just talked about Strickauer and BJ Green. So those guys are specific package guys who I think get 20, 25 snaps. So I don't know if they'll have a chance to break out. And I don't think Gardeck's going to be any better than he was this year because he was pretty dang on good for the limited time. But he's 6'1", 230 pounds. So you have to be very, very judicious with how often you put him out there and not let him get run on and banged up a little bit. And he also plays some special teams. So that's why I decided to go the way that I was going to go. I was going to go, like I say, Jack Kaiser, the linebacker out of Notre Dame. But I'm thinking that they're going to bring in somebody to compete, whether it's through the draft or free agency at that position.
Your surprise pick in this award show was surprise of the year, your nomination of Anton Harrison. My 2026 breakout candidate. How about someone else who took a redshirt year? Caleb Ransaw.
There you go.
Maybe, perhaps, T-Wig, In the way that James Gladstone spoke at the season-ending presser when he referred to players who barely played their rookie campaign in Los Angeles, and suddenly they were the breakout candidate of their sophomore campaigns in LA. Maybe it's Caleb Bransaw, a player that Gladstone reportedly during the draft process and during the scouting process was infatuated with the Tulane safety, who of course suffered a Lisfranc foot injury during training camp and never played a game for the Jaguars in his first season in Duval. I'm just curious because the argument that a lot have made when it comes to the Jaguars safety room and whether or not they still have work to do for that room is, do they have too many box safeties and not enough guys who can truly play center field and actually be ball hawks? And I don't think you necessarily need safeties who are registering 6-7 interceptions a season, although I know there's a Xavier Watts fan contingent here at the Locked On Jaguars YouTube channel, so maybe I shouldn't say that. But point being, I am interested to see what the Jags do if they still feel like there's work to be done in that room. I know there's a couple people stumping out there to bring Dewey Wingard back as well, but I would not be surprised if the Jaguars used another 3rd or 4th round pick on a safety who's a true center fielder, although Rayon Lane certainly proved he can play that role as well. And he's going to be on the roster given the ace that he is on special teams.
Well, I'm fond of both guys from Miami. That the Jaguars can get. Obviously, I love Caleb Downs, but the Jaguars ain't going to be able to get Caleb Downs. Both guys from Miami we talked about. Your guy, I watched him all week. Bud.
He made a lot of money at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, Bud made some
Clark.
money. Matter of fact, Bud might not even be around either. Kamari Ramsey, all of these dudes. But the thing is I think where they're picking on day 2, maybe not the 2nd round, but in the 3rd round, I think that's where you can find, and based on the list that I've seen, that's where you can really, really find that guy you're talking about. And I think that guy is a Dewey replacement. That's what I believe, because I think it's time. We talk about Antonio Johnson. You know what? You got enough experience to take Dewey. Go ahead and take the role that Dewey. You can't keep bringing guys back if you're trying to improve. So the secondary is something that needs to improve. It's going to improve when Jordan Lewis is healthy. It's going to improve getting Travis Hunter back. And then they're going to probably address something with corner on the either free agency or draft to get you that CB2. I think you add something to the back end also. I don't think you stand pat in that situation. They're going to get Ransaw back too. So they're getting 3 people back. I'd hit it again with all of those draft picks, because the draft is all about not necessarily what you want, but it's like what is available at the time that you pick, and you need to take the best thing that you can. And that's where I think you do the swap out with Dewey, and then you let the young guy come in and compete.
Let's head to some of the questions we've received over the course of the last hour here on this Locked On Jaguars Squad show. First things first, our friend Hef says Bud Clark will be there at 81. I hope so, Hef.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too, Hef, but I think I like him just like you. I think he's going to be gone.
From your fingertips to God's ears, my friend, we can only hope that the quote-unquote value of the position, as Brian Branch once experienced, could lead to Bud Clark sliding just a little bit after an impressive Senior Bowl performance. Speaking of the Senior Bowl, Vincent early on asked who impressed us from the Senior Bowl. Certainly Bud Clark. Vincent was a name for me, but that was a name that I had going into the week in Mobile. I would also add, and now I'm blanking on his name, Kyle Lewis. Lewis and Clark, as Todd McShay has coined it, were the 2 most impressive players at the Senior Bowl. Kyle Lewis is an off-ball linebacker from Pitt. He is someone who I think in that 3rd, 4th round could be intriguing. I think Jacob Rodriguez and Bryce Betcher had great showings in Mobile. 2 high-character guys who can play either inside linebacker position. And if you are going to let Devin Lloyd test the waters of free agency, this is as good a class as there is to find not just, hey, this is value at the interior in the inside linebacker position. It's guys that can truly change your defense and your scheme. They're not just someone who plays linebacker, right? Like, no offense to the Nate Landman, the Landman out there in LA with the Rams, who they got off the scrap heap from Atlanta. He fits their system. They gave him a contract extension because he's right for their system. But I don't think he's an athletic freak like Rodriguez or Betcher potentially could be when they test at the end of the month in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so that's why it's going to be real interesting to see what they address in free agency. The weird thing about the Senior Bowl is it messes your clock up a little bit. And the reason why is because you're trying to do mock drafts, and the only way you can really do those mock drafts is best player available, because need might have already been addressed when they get to that point, because free agency comes first. And Senior Bowl, but then you got free agency, and then you got the draft a couple of months later. So I always try to make sure that I acknowledge that part of it. I like Caleb Banks, but once again, there's another dude that we talked about him. I said, Mia, he's 6'6", 330 pounds, but he's a 3 technique who played a little bit of defensive end and an odd front. He's gonna be gone. He ain't gonna be there. He'll probably be gone in the first half of the first round now because the dudes we like. I like the 3 technique also out of Oklahoma. I can't. His name escapes me right now.
What's it? Grayson.
Yeah, he's a little bit smaller. He's not that big. Caleb Banks is bigger than Mason Smith. He's not that big. He's like 6'2.5", 6'3". He goes about 295. And then we drafted Rayon Lane out of Navy. Go back and get that. They got a little defensive tackle up there.
And Robinson.
That's
played
right.
In the triangle.
That can also do a lot of penetrating and get some pressure up the middle. So on the offensive side of the ball with the linemen, I like both guys from Iowa because I always go back to where guys were coached very, very well. I like both players from Iowa, and I like Jake Slaughter from Florida, who plays center but can slide over the guard a little bit too. I look forward to the Jaguars addressing that. From a wide receiver standpoint, even though I don't know if it'll be a priority because their top 3 is pretty much solidified, and Travis is like the 4th, if you want to call him the 4th guy. That little kid out of Cincinnati was catching everything in his sight this weekend, so I got to take a little bit more of a deep dive. I don't look at just highlight tape. I look at the entire thing to see what kind of juice guys have. I liked Kyle Williams last year as a route runner, a guy that can separate and get open, and now he's running around in the Super Bowl with the Patriots, and he's catching balls. So maybe I'll go find one of those dudes because they appear to love guys that get in out of their breaks, they catch the ball with their hands, and they're able to catch it and turn and go up the field really, really fast. It seems like that's what they like. So if they got 4, I'm going to give them a 5th one in the draft. I am obviously saying that I think they're going to draft a wide receiver at some point in that upcoming draft.
Our resident draft expert in the chat, our friend Hef, also adds Derek Moore, the edge out of Michigan, who I also think made himself some money this weekend, into the conversation for Senior Bowl standouts. VJ Payne out of K-State and Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame, another player who I don't know if he's going to be there at 57.
Gone. Yeah. Malachi Fields might not be as fast, but he looks just like Nico Collins or Brandon Marshall to me. Out of there. Ain't no. If he's there when they pick in the second round, I'd take him because you ain't got nobody here like that. Brian Thomas Jr. is kind of supposed to be like that, but even Fields with his body control. I heard some people saying Keon Coleman. No, he's not. He's better than Keon Coleman. So it's just I like the big physical nature. He kind of built like Tim Patrick a little bit when you think about it. That's exactly what he is. But I think he's gone. I think the Jaguars won't even. His name will be called, and y'all will be sitting eating popcorn or hot dogs or something, and the Jaguars won't even have a chance to take it.
Let's stay with this theme that you mentioned of what will the needs actually be following free agency, or how about after self-reflection and self-evaluation? Cali Jaguar, would the move to put Trayvon inside permanently then result in the Jaguars perhaps making edge more of a priority?
It's not going to happen. Trayvon hated having all that weight on him when Ryan Nielsen made him gain that weight. Trayvon is a defensive end, and I know people close to him that are really, really tired of people trying to make him a defensive tackle. He's a defensive end. He's going to get paid as a defensive end. That's what he does. He does it very well. I don't think you need to move him inside. You leave him right where he is, and you just go find a 3 technique that knows how to pass rush. Maybe Franklin Myers, the kid from Denver. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's where they spend their money. Maybe that's where they take their big shot and go get somebody like that. But this whole thing that you're going to move Trayvon Walker inside and he's going to get up to 285, 290 pounds. That's just not going to happen. He'll play there if you move him in on a sub package, but that's during passing downs. He is not a defensive end, and he won't be.
From Chester Pickett, I think Travis Etienne Jr. was great. He really showed that he belongs. I think he's a culture fit for the Jags. And that was with regards to should Travis Etienne have received consideration for our That Guy or Bring the Juice award winners. I would agree with that sentiment, T-Wig. I don't think the Jags will extend Etienne unless they decide to tag him, just because I think that, number one, they recognize the 2 young running backs they have in the building. Number 2, They recognize that they can go out and find a third running back on day 3 of the NFL draft, if not day 2. And I would also add that the Jaguars, comparatively to where even they thought they were in October, I don't want to say that the timeline has been expedited, but this idea of if you let Devin Lloyd walk, if you let Travis Etienne walk, Greg Newsome, go down the line of some of these pending free agents who surprisingly, Buster Brown, they surprisingly could receive a nice little contract on the open market. Devin Lloyd and Travis Etienne, obviously the most noteworthy of those names. And do the Jaguars enter the comp pick business already in just year 2 of the Liam Cohen, James Gladstone era? That's where I'm interested to see in which direction they go.
Yeah, I am too. I know there's a lot of people out there talking about make a trade for this guy or make a trade for that guy. I ain't got no problem with it unless it means not doing what you do well. And we just named all of these new guys that they brought in and they onboarded correctly and they hit on their superpower, if you will. There's my word again, right? We just talked about it. Everybody that they played as a rookie, whatever they said that's what they did really well in college. LaQuint Allen, pass protection, Swiss Army knife, right? Rayon Lane, special teams demon, Strigal, BJ. Why would you trade all of your draft picks away when drafting players that fit your team is your superpower? So just because you won 13 games, I saw some people suggest the Jags are close. Go for it. You know what go for it is? Staying true to yourself. Just do what you do. Do what you just did. Why would you give all of that away to go out and get somebody else's 30-year-old problem that's coming off of an injury? I'm talking about Max Crosby. As much as I love him, I'm really I saw a trade that I could not believe. It involved 2 first-round picks and Trayvon. That means the Jaguars wouldn't have a first-round pick until 2029. And I'm sitting there thinking like it doesn't – if they did that trade – people around the league would laugh at him. And I don't think they're going to do it anyway. But as great as Max Crosby is, the next time the Jaguars have a first-round pick, Max Crosby will be retired if they did that. You're giving away your own superpower. It's what you do well. Finding guys, bringing them in, getting instant production out of them, and for a cheaper price, and you're going to give that away. I just don't get it. I really don't. I don't understand that.
I've heard that column and that asking price was a bit off base from what I've been told for what the asking price for Max Crosby.
And I respect it was Ryan. I respect O'Halloran.
And also, like, Ryan even said it to me, like, and for what it's worth for all of you, like O'Halloran said to me, he was like, look, it's a column. Like, the whole point is to stir up conversation. I know we're not used to that in Jacksonville. Hey, yo.
Right.
But that's what the newspaper columnist is supposed to do, is to make you angry and have an opinion. Now, have I been told by some league sources that is not the asking price at this juncture, because you also would have to pay Max Crosby the next 2 years, a pretty hefty cap number. And so you have to take that into the equation. So therefore he would not be worth that many first round picks and a player who is a borderline Pro Bowler. So I mean, that's where, again, the question becomes, if it really is a 3 and a 5 or a 2 and a 4, like, does that change your opinion on Max Crosby to the Jaguars?
No, because you know why? You could even though he's not as good, if you want to do that, just sign Trey Hendrickson in free agency. If that's what you're going to do, just sign. He's about a year or 2 older, but he still can play. Sign Trey Hendrickson in free agency. You don't have to give up any draft capital for anything. And if you bring an end in here, I would prefer them to trade somebody that's not Trayvon. And I know Josh Allen going to see me every time he sees me, man, you've been trying to trade me for 4 years. No, I'm not. I'm just trying to make sense of this whole thing, that this is going to bring somebody in. If Trayvon isn't moving inside, which I don't believe he is, how you gonna play? How you gonna play him and pay him, and then the dude is on a 5th-year option, expecting to get big money next year? Josh is making big money. You just cannot allocate that much money to one room. It doesn't work that way. Trayvon's still gonna make $15 million next year. So what is Josh making? 20 something, and you're gonna bring another dude in here to make 30? That just doesn't make sense. That's not how this goes.
One more note on our awards. Thank you, one legend. Jarian Jones probably deserves some type of award, whether it's for the juice guy or that guy, because certainly this team took on the identity of the second-year cornerback and the energy that he feeds off of. And I would also give him a lot of credit. Maybe we give him the character arc of the year award, because Preseason darling, everyone's favorite Jaguar. I think I speak for a lot of Jaguar fans in terms of the juice that he brings, the fact that he grew up a Jaguars fan in Mississippi. This is a guy you want to follow. And then perhaps the first few games of the season, he didn't perform up to snuff at outside corner, a position that he was given the opportunity to compete for. Buster Brown comes back from injury, supplants him at that spot, not to mention the Travis Hunter of it all. And I also would like to point that one of those games was against the Cincinnati Bengals and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I think anyone would struggle against those two. But point being, Jarian Jones never gave up, focused, locked in, accepted whatever role it would be, kept pounding the stone, and ultimately resulted in one of the better 2-month stretches of any player on the team, the final 2 months of the season.
He might be the reason that they don't sign a free agent corner and they draft a guy. Because you ain't going to go out and give a dude a whole bunch of money and then you bring him in here and say, okay, you're going to compete with Jarian. Or tell Jarian, okay, well, he's going to take your spot. I think you draft a dude, if you draft a guy and then you say, okay, now y'all go for it and see what's happening. Jarian might end up being the starter across from Travis Hunter at the end of the day. And with Jordan Lewis in the slot. And then bring someone in who can be your fourth corner. That's a young player, and if he's got the juice, he's got the juice. And maybe when Travis goes over to play offense, he gives him a blow. Your third corner is a very, very important player here on a team that's going to win a championship. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I think you're spot on, though, and he's right there on the most improved player. He's right there.
Which, by the way, the Jaguars reportedly have a lot of faith in Christian Braswell, the former 6th-round pick who came in spot duty and is a 4-core special team guy. Maybe he becomes that fourth corner, and then you bring in, via day 3 of the NFL draft, you bring in that 5th corner to flesh out the rest of the room. One more from Vincent, since he asked about Carter Bradley following his dad to Tennessee. To my knowledge, Vincent, I believe he signed a futures contract with the Jags. Also, the Bradleys still have a house here in the Jacksonville area, which Carter has gotten to live in by himself with his dog the last few months, and I think he's enjoying being back in his pseudo hometown. I think we're in the clear, but hey, listen, I don't know. That I would think that he's going to stick around here, and it'll be a funny pregame interaction when the Jags and the Titans play for the first time in 2026.
Absolutely, I wouldn't. I don't think my kids would want to play for me if they had a choice. But live in my house for free, absolutely. They do that in a heartbeat.
That feels like a great place to end on this Monday edition of the Jaguar Squad Show. Thanks to everybody for hanging out with us live. We will be back on Wednesday for a new show, 4:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our friend Marcus Ogden will be back for that program, and we will dive into all of your favorite prospects from the Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, and beyond. Until Wednesday, we will catch you later.